All right. Ask day 3. We are here and we are excited about another great group of lineup of presentations. Yesterday was great. The day before was great. And we have a tremendous start to today with Jennifer Dixon, the founder of JD Solutions. Jennifer, we are so excited about you kicking off today. You have a great message about, really, a beginner's guide to revenue operations. And we always hear that term, this is the way we've always done it. But in a world of lowering budgets with higher expectations, I'm looking forward to your presentation. So welcome to the third day of Ask Day.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. So really excited to be here.
Yeah, we're excited that you're here and looking forward to your message. If you've watched the last few days, I've always asked every presenter, what's an interesting story that you can share about yourself? And I'd love to hear what you have to offer.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I feel like there's nothing that makes you more nervous than when somebody asks you an interesting fact about yourself. You immediately panic. I'll share the story that I got into senior living because my mom, when she got remarried, she got married in a senior living community where her residents were a part of the wedding. We, of course, were a part of the wedding. And at first I thought it was the strangest thing in the world. And it was just an awesome introduction to senior living.
What a great story, man, very personal. When people say this is really personal to you, I think you have a great story to really, says why this space is so meaningful to you, but your family and so many others.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, great. Well, hey, I'll back out. I'll let you take it from here, but looking forward to your presentation.
All right, great. Thank you, Larry. Thanks, Dave. And thank you everyone for taking some time to join us today. So I am really excited to talk with all of you and just want to give a quick shout out to the amazing Kelly Kulik. She was due to be here with us today. She was in the field with our client communities, went to Florida, quickly left Florida due to the hurricane. So I think she's out there in the audience. So if y'all see her in the lobby, make sure you give Kelly a shout out. So today, where I want to start for all of you is I want to start with just sharing. I alluded to it a little bit with Larry's great question, but my why. And I thought that this was a nice way to let you all kind of get to know me. But in my family, really big extended family, I grew up with my grandparents, great aunts, great uncles. And as I joined senior living, I learned that these are all people who you work with and who really become a part of your extended family, which I think is really exciting. So I enjoyed that so much that at the start of 2020, I decided to found a business after 14 years in senior living that was focused on supporting senior living investors, operators, and sales professionals and marketing experts like all of you. So that's a quick story about me. And now today we are diving into this topic. And I just want to pause for a moment and say that I really thought about what could I bring to share with all of you that would be interesting and that would be different and something that we see a need for every day. So today, what I'm going to ask of all of you on Ask Day, haha, no pun intended, is to take a little bit of a journey with me on thinking about what could be in senior living through this lens of revenue operations. So to begin, what is revenue operations? What exactly is it? It is not a fancy word for sales operations or sales enablement or sales and marketing working together. It is not any of those things. Revenue operations is truly a guiding methodology that a company embraces to guide how they operate their business every single day. And its purpose is designed to break down those silos that we experience and that our customers experience through that customer journey. So ultimately, the idea of revenue operations is this idea of aligning sales, marketing, finance, and customer success, which we know translates to resident success. That's what revenue operations is. And so we think about, where did this come from? And where did this, word, phrase, methodology of RevOps come from? And I think what I've observed, and I think what many in the business world over the past 5 years have seen, is that we've experienced this really big shift in not only how we do business, but how our customers, consumers, residents, prospective residents, how they behave and their expectations. And I fundamentally believe that we have to adapt and we have to evolve in order to keep up with today's environment. And you can see this is a super common snapshot here out of HubSpot, showing just even the difference of the funnel to the flywheel approach, where we always looked at, okay, you've got marketing, you've got sales, and that translates into customers. And we know that it is so much more complicated than that. I'd like to share a bit about what makes up the foundation of revenue operations. And if we were to look at, the basic pillars, and as you think about your businesses, whether you are a CEO, you're in finance, you're in sales, you're in marketing, or you are a service provider working within the senior living industry, this is what we call the foundation or the building blocks of revenue operations. And there's 4 key areas: centralized data and analytics, which means, and let's just think about this for a minute, right? Everybody's talking about data. It's data. Sometimes it feels like death by data. But what happens in senior living when every single department is measuring things differently? Everybody has different metrics. Everybody has different KPIs. They might have different tools that they're using to do that. And revenue operations aligns everything through a centralized data and analytics approach. So that's one pillar. Second pillar is this idea of tools and enablement. And anybody who has worked in senior living sales for the past 3.5 years knows that there has been no shortage of tools, technology, and platforms that have been pushed out at us with the expectation to use it. So again, foundationally, great pillars of revenue operations are incorporating tools and how we use them. So when everybody's beginning to use technology in different capacities in each department, well, how do you ensure that it rolls out smoothly and that everything that you're paying for actually translates into a return on investment? And the third and the fourth pillars are processes and systems and planning and strategy. So for processes and systems, what I want you to think about is think of the scaffolding around a house. And that's what your processes and your systems are. And in senior living, what we see all too often is we see too much or too little. And we know that too much red tape, too many processes and systems can actually slow business down. In sales, too many processes and systems and over-scripted approaches really takes away from that push to really personalize experiences. So revenue operations aligns data analytics, the tools you're using, and ensures that you have consistent systems. So every time you go to onboard somebody, you're not like, okay, where's my login? Where's my sign in? How do I use this? Am I supposed to use this? Brings everything together. And the final pillar is planning and strategy. This means that everybody across the board is aligned and you have the ability to steer the ship. And I'm going to go into that a little bit more later, but those are the key pillars of revenue operations. So what it means is that if you look at just, when you really bring it down, what's the core of revenue operations? The goal is you want to be able to unify the operations systems and data that support this entire revenue cycle. So it's not just sales, it's not marketing, it's not ops and clinical here and finance here. It's looking at an entire picture. And so why? What would we expect from this? Why would we invest time, resources, or people into looking at something like this in senior living? Well, we know that the outcomes change. We have improved prospective consumer experiences when you look at this. Increased resident and customer retention. Better work experiences. Nobody likes to have like a million different platforms and things and processes and systems shoved at them. And then in the meantime, you're thinking, well, how do I actually sell? Or how do I actually develop a great marketing or digital strategy? So it aligns that, a great working environment and working experience. So that way, ultimately, when you look at who you are doing this for, you're doing it for your associates, you're doing it for the key stakeholders in your organization, investors, owners, everyone, it goes on and on. You have that goal of consistent and scalable growth. So I was really curious about this and had become very curious about this and started looking into researching like, okay, well, what is the bigger picture even outside of senior living? And I found some really interesting statistics. LinkedIn did a 4-year study looking at what was and what are the fastest growing jobs in the United States, trending from 2019 year over year up until January of 2023. That number one job, revenue operations. Consistent growth year over year. It is the fastest growing job in our country. A Gartner study, and if you've ever, looked into Gartner, they have great studies, great information. Definitely check out their website. 75% of the world, so this is on a global scale, the world's highest growth companies will have implemented this type of model by 2025. Pretty incredible statistic there when we think about what is happening right now to put these things into place. So we have to ask why even outside of senior living, like why is there such fast growth? Why is this happening? And I think that there are a couple reasons for this and would love to hear what you all think. So, as I'm talking and as we're going through this, throw your comments in the chat or send things over to Larry and Dave. But I think why this is revenue operations is growing so quickly is one, like we talked about, the consumer expectation has shifted across the board. And we talk a lot about in senior living sales and marketing, what's our differentiator? What makes us different? What's the hook? What's the this? What's that? But the experience that we provide is the differentiator. And in senior living, I think we've looked at the idea of experience a little too narrowly. And we have to look at what is the experience from when that family member is sitting there at 2:00 in the morning and they go in and they do their Google search and they come to your content in your website. Does that immediately evoke feelings and an experience for them? Because I think that, and this is, I'm going to speak for senior living, our prospective residents and the influencers that, kind of are a part of their lives. And, even if we think of, our residents, they want to feel like we understand them. And right now, I think there's tremendous opportunity for us to do a better job to show that we understand them. And that means understanding their pain points. That means understanding what they want. I envision a day where there are no speaking sessions on whether or not we should post pricing on our websites. I think that would be an amazing time, that if that is never a topic of discussion ever again, because we know that that's what families want to understand. And yet we provide so little education and information on the front end for them. So thinking about whether it's pricing, whether it's what life is like, whether this is a good fit for me, think about making the move and all of the pain points of making the move. We know what the challenges are. We are not communicating it on the front end and really letting our consumers know that we get you, we hear you, and we want to help you with these things. So those are some of the reasons, from a consumer standpoint, why revenue operations is growing so quickly, because businesses are looking to harness this. They're looking at, okay, well, how do I do this? in today's environment? And how do I scale this throughout my organization without spending a massive amount of money? And we know that right now, I know from, starting a business in 2020, you all know from working in businesses, starting businesses, working in the operation, that right now, running a business in 2023, we're tech enabled, we're digital, we're data driven. And in senior living, we are deeply, deeply people and resident focused. Things sometimes that we know may or may not be able to be quantified into data. And so all of this requires alignment. It requires our teams to be very cross-functional and connected versus siloed. And that's what revenue operations, the role of revenue operations, the methodology of revenue operations does. And finally, this is such a growing fast area because we all know that right now, there is a demand for increased performance, increased results, increased move-in, increased revenue, profit margins, while at the same time, we're living in a time of high inflation and the cost of everything is so much more expensive. So right now, people are wondering, how do I make good business decisions? And revenue operations is the key to making good business decisions versus making decisions that are on the fly. And so I want to give a couple examples here. Again, talking about data, I get very excited about data. I love data. I think it can help you be both proactive and help you with your defensive and offensive strategies. It tells you so much. But there is something to be said, is there too much or too little data? And this is another study, Salesforce, really big. You can't even really call them a CRM company anymore. They are really, a customer enablement company. But they did a study that showed that almost 60% of companies lack a centralized customer database. So what does that mean? And what do I mean by centralized customer database? I'm not talking about CRM. I'm not talking about HubSpot. If you take a look here and you think about senior living, we have data about our prospective customers and our existing customers in probably 15 to 20 different spots. And what happens is that when the data comes from so many different places, and everybody in their departments is trying to, maybe present a business case with it or just trying to wrangle it and understand it, what happens is that it almost becomes, and I know this is strong, but it really becomes useless because it's this barrier to making good decisions or improving an experience because none of us are really speaking the same language. It doesn't mean that one department carries weight over the other, even though sales is the best, just kidding. But what it does mean is that there's so much that it's hard to be able to decide, well, what do I do? And how do I make a good informed decision with where I want to go? So what do we see and what do I see happening here in the future? I know I've talked a lot about this role of like the chief revenue officer or, the executive director role, operations being the chief revenue officer. But this was a quote or came from a discussion with a leader of a company where he said, I don't see myself as a chief revenue officer. He's like, this means customer relationship obsessed. And I thought that was really great because a lot of people associate revenue with sales. And depending on what department you're in, maybe you don't. And so what revenue operations does is it brings everybody together to look at things through this customer relationship and customer journey lens. Revenue operations ensures that not only do we all have a seat at the table when you're making business decisions, but that we hear the voice of our residents and prospective consumers. Revenue operations ensures that we actually understand and can quantify the buyer journey, and every single person understands their role in improving it. And my personal favorite with my bias towards sales is that sales actually gets to spend more time, oh my gosh, in front of customers and less time on reporting, internal tools, processes, and the million other things that we are continually asking sales directors to do that do not in any way contribute to revenue growth, customer experience, and the goals that most organizations are striving toward. And finally, revenue operations is shaping the future of data, moving into that single source of truth data versus 50 million different data points in different places. So here's where I am going to bring things to a close and of course, open it up to all of you if you have questions or comments, but I just want you all to imagine what the impact of something like this could be on senior living. I'm not suggesting it's easy or waving a magic wand, but I think that with all of you sitting on this webinar today, or if you're listening to the playback, if you are the leader of a company, or if you're listening today and you're working within an organization, I see you all as the future leaders of senior living organizations. And of course, all of those companies that support the senior living industry. But can you just imagine for a moment, like, what if we knew our resident outcomes and we could actually quantify what good looks like and communicate that to our referral partners, to our investors, to everybody, to prospective families? Can you imagine if everything we know, with how intimately we know our residents and their families, could you imagine that those demographics, that information, behaviors, and habits could actually inform our sales and marketing strategy to help us create a better story and really speak to families about what they want to hear? And don't even get me started on aligning community, company, and investors. A lot of times everybody's speaking a different language, let alone the language of what we know our prospective families and residents need. Revenue operations begins to align all of that so we all speak the same language. And while I'm dreaming, could you imagine having a website that is not about how amazing and wonderful your brand is, but speaks very clearly and in a way that families actually feel like we get them, and tells the story of what life is really like at our communities? And so you have more qualified leads coming in. And finally, I saved this last one because I feel like it's right now. You're in budget season. We're talking about rate increases, quarterly sales and marketing plans, pricing strategy. And I look at what everyone is doing, calling their competitors mystery shops. Do I raise the cost of this apartment by $500, $200, or $1,000, or are we overpriced? Could you imagine if we could make informed business decisions so that way, again, all of us in organizations could focus on what we do best and have the directional information to make good decisions around how we'll get to our budgets and exceed them, make good decisions on are we priced appropriately, and have sales and marketing plans that actually make sense and aren't something that we just put together and then just like pull it out a quarter later and be like, oh my God, did we do any of this? That's what I'm imagining for the future. And that's what I hope I've inspired all of you to think about in your organization. So I just want to thank all of you. Larry, Dave, I'm going to bring things back over to you. My cell contact information is here. Follow me on LinkedIn, email Kelly and I, and just want to thank you all for the opportunity to be here.
Jennifer, that was amazing. And it's interesting. It continues a trend throughout this Ask Day, which is taking data and then, telling a story with it. And what I thought was interesting is you brought a different approach, which is the data amongst different departments. And, I have a quick question for you, which is, do you have any advice on how to create transparent dialogue within different departments as it relates to the data they're bringing to the table? Because like you said, we're drowning in data and everybody has their information they're bringing into each department. That is the most important, driver. And to be able to come together and have that open dialogue, I think it's really important. Sometimes we have the data, we just don't know what to do with it and how to make it into one larger cycle. I'd love to get your feedback there.
Right. Well, I think, kind of two thoughts here. One is, I think that, and I think I would hope most people agree with this because most of us live it, is that we have very little time for thinking in senior living. We have very little time to stop and think. It's go, 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 put the numbers together. The investors want this, the owners want this, go, go, go. There is very little time, even cross-functionally, to come together, either in the community or in the company organization, to even talk about what you have. And I think the other comment that I would make is that I do think, things like that coming together and talking about what you have is great. But I would say that this is revenue operations is a methodology. It is a way to operate the business. This isn't something this has to be a leadership approach that every level, everybody has to be bought into, not one department. So I can't emphasize enough that if you're sitting here listening to this and you're like, that is the complete opposite of my organization, well, you need to send the replay and invite your CEOs and COOs and CFOs and investors to jump on the Ask Day website and check out all the replays of all the great content that's on here.
So on that, it's interesting you say that you want to get everybody on the same page. Start with, this is our goal. Do you have any advice on how to even get groups to start with that discussion?
Right. Wow. I think the simplest answer to that is you have to prioritize and make time for it. I mean, look at what we're doing. We have, 200-300 people, all from different parts of the US, all finding, time to be able to come in here virtually. What stops us organizationally to take 30 minutes out of our day, out of our month, to kind of come together as a leadership team and talk about some of these issues and form a plan? So I feel like there are small steps where we can maximize the way that we communicate nowadays. But there's a lot to be done.
Absolutely. It's kind of one of those things where you're so in it and focused on it, you don't see the bigger picture at times. And you're so focused on what your department needs to do, you almost need to take a step back and say, okay, what's the true goal? And like you said, bringing community, the company, and the investors all together for that one unified goal is a great place to start, and to make sure you're having that dialogue and don't assume what that goal is, because that gets us all in trouble for sure.
It does. It absolutely does.
So I got another question for you, because just coming from the sales world, you mentioned sales spends the most time with clients, and I always find this to be true, which is the data sometimes says one thing, but the salespeople come back and say, I know what the data says, I'm just telling you this is what we're hearing. Do you get a lot of that feedback, or is it typically the data tells the story that the potential residents are saying as well?
Right. I think it's a good question and something important to think about. So data can't be the end all be all. It can't. So there's typically multiple things that we have to look at, or multiple factors that are going to shape that. What I will say is exciting is I do think that in senior living, we are moving into a time where we've gone from very unsophisticated, unhelpful sales CRMs to a time where there are more options and things that really help salespeople stay on track. And the ability to integrate and that connectivity to all of the awesome MarTech that is out there. I think that's a big step for us, because salespeople should not be spending all day in their CRMs. They shouldn't. They need to be spending time in front of, prospective families. That's what they should be doing. But at the same time, we need great technology to be able to support that. So salespeople have the tools to be able to do their jobs well. So it should enable them. It should help them. It shouldn't be, man, now I got to sit in the CRM for 5 hours and, put all this crap in. So which is, just the reality of how you can feel sometimes, like, great, another checkbox, another drop down. Thanks, guys. So I do think we're kind of coming into a time where we're really looking at what the user experience is for marketers in senior living, for sales leaders in senior living, and for all of the support teams at the corporate investor level that use this data.
It can definitely be a chicken or the egg philosophy, which is like, we don't know what the clients are looking for till we have that information at the CRM. But on the flip side, well, we can't go speak to the clients until we're able to clean up this, like get past the CRM. So it's always a balancing act, but that's one thing I'm excited about. And especially over the last few days with Ask Days, understanding how technology is going to further help us in this journey instead of something we need to be afraid of. We need to roll with the technology and machine learning and artificial intelligence. So that a lot of excitement there. I know you said,
Larry,
go ahead, Dave.
You made me think of something. So we just did the marketers survey. So from the marketing side of the house, we did that marketing survey with Senior Housing News beginning of the year. And I remembered as you were talking, one of the questions was, we asked people where they spend their time planning, executing, or reporting. And we found it's almost 2 to 1. We don't analyze that data. We spend the most time planning. We spend a moderate amount of time executing and almost no time looking back on that reporting so we can make future decisions. So that's kind of, I thought, telling and speaks to the conversation a little bit. So
it's spot on. And that's essentially what revenue operations is. So if we're going to take all this time, we're going to gather all this data, we're doing all this work, and we're not going to stop and see what's working, what's not working, how to quantify it. And be agile. So it's just, it kind of tends to be that cycle there that, we don't want to be in, and we want to be able to get ahead of. And what I will say, especially for marketers, which is, I'm excited to see the growth of marketing and the role of directors of marketing in senior living. But man, don't get me started on the soapbox of one marketer in an organization serving 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 communities. My gosh. So I'm excited because there's opportunity for education to teach owners and investors even what marketing is. A lot of people don't understand it. I maybe know enough to be dangerous to know that I don't know, like what I don't know. But it's that we expect marketers to be this jack of all trades when they need team, tools, and time to think about what's working. So, and you could take that and put it across every department in senior living. And so that's why I'm so, I get pretty enthusiastic about this.
It sounds like you're already preparing for your next Ask Day presentation, which I'm excited about.
Yeah.
I think we need to have a sales and marketing panel. I think that sounds about right.
And that's a good idea, Dave. So great. Well, Jennifer, thank you again for this presentation. It was eye-opening. It really takes a lot of the different conversations we've had over the last 2 days and pulls everything together. So I think it was really good timing that this was on our third day as we've discussed technology and, really where do we go from here? And you really did a great job of pulling it all together. So going forward, where can people find you? Are you on LinkedIn? It seems to be that's a common answer.
I am. Yes, you can follow me and Kelly Kulik on LinkedIn. You can check out our company LinkedIn page, JD Solutions Group, or you can check out our website, jdsolutionsgroup.com. So thank you so much for having me. It was such fun.
And let me ask one last question, because it seems like the fall is going to be busy for everyone. What conferences will you be attending this fall, or you or Kelly?
Oh, that is a good question. So, so you can always find us at the Fall NIC conference. And of course, I'm really excited. Love the Interface conferences, and Kelly and I will be at Interface Northeast in Philly, which is coming up in November.
Nice. That's exciting. Well, I'm sure you're going to have a lot of friends who will join you there. And again, we want to thank you for this presentation. And we will catch everybody in about 10 minutes for our next presentation.
Great.
All right, great. Hey, thank you, Jennifer.
All right.
All right.
Thanks.
See you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.